Imagine walking into a house 4,500 years ago and flushing a toilet. No, seriously. You find a dedicated bathroom, covered drains, and literally a wind-powered air conditioning system built right into the roof. Sounds like science fiction, right? But you aren't in ancient Rome, and you definitely aren't in modern Manhattan. You're in the ancient Indus River Valley in 2500 BC. While folks in Egypt and Mesopotamia were busy building massive pyramids for pharaohs, the people of the Indus Valley were actually perfecting urban engineering. So by the end of this explainer, you're going to understand exactly how this civilization became urban masters, the secret math behind their undeciphered code, and the wild theories trying to explain their great collapse. Let's get right into it. Part 1. Masters of Urban Planning. Okay, let's look at their rise. Starting way back around 2800 BCE, early farmers took advantage of this incredibly rich alluvial soil dropped by the Indus River. We're talking a river flowing all the way from the Himalayas down to the Indian Ocean. And they used this to spark a massive urban revolution. By 2000 BCE, they had built over 1,000 urban centers across modern-day Pakistan and India. The crown jewels? Massive cities like Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, packing in up to 30,000 people each. To put that into perspective, that's like taking a giant modern university campus and running the whole thing flawlessly without a single piece of modern machinery. And their structural mastery was honestly just mind-blowing. They divided these sprawling cities into 2 distinct zones. It's kind of like strict modern zoning laws. On one side, you've got the upper city, or the citadel. This was walled off, likely for the elite, built on these massive mud brick platforms up to 23 feet high, complete with enormous public bath tanks. On the flip side, you have the lower city, which was this incredibly precise, grid-based residential area for everyone else. Let's make this easier to picture with an example of a typical everyday home. Down in the lower city, your standard house had 4 to 6 rooms wrapped around a central courtyard. And because their water engineering was so incredibly advanced, almost every home had a private well and an indoor toilet. Those toilets hooked right up to a sophisticated, citywide covered drainage network running safely under the streets. Some of the bigger multi-story homes even had special wind captures on the roofs that pumped cool air inside. I mean, an ancient functioning AC system. How cool is that? Which brings us to part 2, ancient trade and barcodes. Now that we understand how they laid out their cities, let's look at how they actually fueled this highly organized society. It was all about complex international commerce. These Indus Valley merchants didn't just stay in their own backyard. They built massive maritime and overland trade routes, hauling precious goods like lapis lazuli, carnelian, and marine shells all the way across the Indian Ocean and the Iranian Plateau. Their final stop, ancient Sumer in Mesopotamia. In fact, Mesopotamian cuneiform tablets actually mention the Indus Valley, calling it Meluha. But hold on, here's a quick question to test your thinking. How on earth do you track international shipments across thousands of miles without computers? You might be asking, how did they actually prove ownership and authenticity of all these precious goods in a super busy ancient market? The answer? The Indus Valley Seal. Let's connect this to real life for a second. Think of these little clay seals as the ancient equivalent of a QR code or an Amazon barcode on your shipping box. Merchants would stamp these seals, which had little animal totems and a bit of script on them, right onto the soft clay sealing their jars or onto clay tags tied to grain sacks. If that seal was perfectly intact when the package finally arrived in Mesopotamia, the buyer knew absolutely for sure that the goods were authentic and hadn't been tampered with. We literally found these specific Indus seals sitting in ancient Sumerian cities. Let's move on to part 3, the unsolved language mystery. Now, this brings us to a major student confusion, and it is a super common one. If these people were so ridiculously advanced and use these barcode-like seals everywhere, why can't we just read their writing today? Well, the reason is deeply frustrating for historians. Their unique script has about 400 distinct phonogram signs, meaning symbols that represent syllable sounds. But unlike Egyptian hieroglyphs, we've never found a bilingual translation text. There is absolutely no Rosetta Stone for the civilization. Because of that terrible luck, the language is still totally undeciphered. So, to figure out if these symbols were just random tax marks or actual human speech, a computer scientist named Rajesh Rao ran a mathematical concept called conditional entropy. Let's break this down simply. Conditional entropy just measures the randomness in a sequence. Natural human languages have very specific rules, right? So they have low randomness. For example, in English, if I write the letter Q, you know with near 100% certainty the very next letter is going to be U. It's highly predictable. Rao's computer program measured that exact kind of predictability in the Indus symbols. Wait, this is important. The computer proved that the symbols act exactly like a natural spoken language. The predictability matched up perfectly. In fact, the conditional entropy closely resembled Old Tamil, which is an early form of the Dravidian language family still spoken in southern India right now. This one scientific result has sparked massive modern debate about the ancestry of the people who originally spoke it, tapping into some very complex centuries-old social identities in South Asia. And that leads us to our final chapter, Part 4, The Great Unsolved Collapse. So here is the big question. How does a relatively egalitarian society with perfect plumbing, a sprawling international trade network, and a complex written language just vanish by 1500 BCE? Well, historians are totally split between a few theories. They range from catastrophic regional climate shifts, like altered monsoon patterns that literally dried up the rivers, to severe environmental degradation caused by centuries of overpopulation and intense farming. Other theories point to tectonic activity changing the river courses, or maybe a massive epidemic disease. And finally, there's the much older text-based theory of an invasion by nomadic Indo-European speakers calling themselves Aryans. When we actually examine the evidence, we physically see shifting floodplains and dry riverbeds popping up around 2000 BCE. On the environmental side, the archaeological record shows massive population density, leading to severe resource depletion. And for the Aryan invasion theory, religious texts like the Rigveda describe attacks on walled cities. Plus, we have physical evidence that Mohenjo-Daro was attacked and heavily damaged around 1500 BCE. So here's the crucial point. The truth is likely a combination of these factors. It was a perfect storm. An environment degraded by overfarming and severe climate shifts left an already weakened, thirsty population incredibly vulnerable to disease or outside attack. Before we finish up, let's quickly summarize the key takeaway here. By 1500 BCE, their writing, their perfect city grids, and their incredible crafts were totally abandoned. Yet, even though they left behind no monumental pyramids or massive royal tombs, their mastery of urban living and their unique religious iconography, like early proto-Shiva figures and dancing bronze sculptures, absolutely paved the way for later Indian cultures. The cities vanished, but their cultural DNA survived. And this leaves us with one final lingering thought. If we ever actually crack that ancient code, what hidden histories, stories, and scientific breakthroughs will the Indus Valley reveal next? This exact lingering mystery is why historical deduction is so incredibly fascinating. I highly recommend joining our next explainer to see how neighboring ancient empires dealt with their own catastrophic collapses. Thank you so much for learning.